If you've been listening to guitar music through the decades, you might think every new innovation has been achieved. But what if I told you there was an underground music scene creating a totally new and mind-bending form of guitar rock music, and of all places, it was happening in the Sahara Desert? It sounds like fiction, but this is actually true. Something about the immense beauty and hostility of the region, as well as the unique endurance of the Touareg people who inhabit it, has made the Sahara and Sahel a hotbed for 21st century electric guitar music. I'm going to cover 3 artists in particular that have become well known in the West, and also try to explain what makes this music so unique, how it emerged, and why it's captivating so many big names in music, like Robert Plant and Brian Eno, just to name a few. Number 1. Mdou Moctar. One of the newest Touareg guitarists to emerge is 33-year-old Mdou Moctar from Agadez, Niger. Mdou came of age in a culture that was already ripe for musical innovation. By the late 2000s, Touarègue, the genre that roughly translates to Saharan Desert blues, had already been developing for a couple decades, and many Nigerians were sharing local music via Bluetooth transfers between their phones. Inspired by these musicians, as well as American rock bands like Jimi Hendrix, Van Halen, and Prince, Mdou's band developed an electrifying sound, with immensely captivating guitar riffs and incredible rhythms. Melodically, it's much simpler than Western pop music, which has a lot more chord changes, but the rhythm and energy of the guitar riffs is incredible. In the documentary A Story of Sahel Sounds, filmmaker and label owner Chris Kirkley films Mdou in his hometown, playing an impromptu performance with friends. One thing I love about this genre is how many times the audience takes on rhythmic and vocal duties, blurring the line between the performer and the audience. Number 2. Tinariwen. One of the most influential bands of the desert blues genre, Tinariwen were formed in 1979 in a refugee camp in Tamanrasset, Algeria. Originally from Mali, frontman Ibrahim Ag al-Habib witnessed the execution of his father by Mali government troops at the age of 4 and spent much of his youth living in exile. As a teenager, he met other Touareg rebels who, in addition to fighting in the resistance, began to play music together, inspired by North African folk and pop, as well as Western rock bands like Led Zeppelin, Carlos Santana, Dire Straits, and Jimi Hendrix. War is an ever-present theme amongst these bands, and to better understand the music, we have to cover a little bit of the politics. The Touareg people live primarily across 5 countries in the Saharan Desert, but do not have a majority in a single one. As a result, they've suffered from oppression and resource exploitation for decades, and since the 1960s, there have been numerous uprisings. The members of Tinariwen finally returned to Mali in 1990, and a peace agreement allowed them to quit the military and perform music full-time. In the late 90s, Tinariwen's music began to break in France, and they soon became an international sensation, touring around Europe, North America, Japan, and Australia, as well as continuing to play shows in the Sahara. Number 3. Bambino. Bambino is an incredibly skilled guitarist and vocalist who emerged in the late 2000s. After seeing a guitar for the first time as a refugee in Algeria, Bambino began listening to tapes by Jimi Hendrix and Dire Straits. As a sheep herder in his late teens and early 20s, he had many solitary hours to play and develop his style, which is often very tranquil and meditative. Though Bambino was eventually able to return to his hometown of Agadez, Niger, he had to leave yet again due to the 2007 uprising. During this time, guitarists in particular were targeted by the government, as the guitar was seen as a symbol of rebellion. In fact, 2 of his bandmates disappeared at this time and are assumed to have been executed. The filmmaker Ron Wyman met up with Bambino while he lived in exile in Burkina Faso and caught several incredible performances. The film, called Agadez, the Music and the Rebellion, also explores some of the unique aspects of Touareg culture, like their emphasis on freedom, nature, and self-reliance. The Touareg people fought the Muslim conquerors in the 7th century, earning themselves the very name Touareg, which originally meant rebel. When you look at the evolution of rock music, from the impoverished blues guitarist in the Jim Crow South to ravished post-war England, there's a common theme. There's extreme social upheaval or political strife, yet the ability for musicians to come together with free expression. In much of the Muslim world, that free expression does not exist. However, the unique history, geography, and culture of the Touareg people have created a society where that free expression does exist, however unstably, and as a result, we're seeing some of the most incredible music of the 2000s emerge in this very spot. Now, I only covered 3 bands, which barely scratches the surface. I'm going to list a few more at the end of this video, but if there's any others I missed, which I most certainly did, please drop a line in the comments.
صدى